Hello YouTube friends. In this video, I'm going to show you how to write your first end-to-end test using Playwright library inside ActivePieces. If you don't know what Playwright is, it is an open source library built by Microsoft to automate browser tasks. It allows you to interact with a web browser such as to click buttons, fill out forms, navigate between pages, web scraping, and so much more. If you always want to write some automation or would like just to learn Playwright in ActivePieces, this video is for you. I'm going to show you how to set up ActivePieces and write code to do automation testing. We're going to be using BrowserCat service to do the heavy lifting for their headless browser. We will connect via WebSocket, which is a very fast mechanism for sending commands and receiving responses. And I'm also going to show you the fast way to create tests without using code. If you're new to my channel, my name is Dennis, and I do videos on automation, coding, and AI. If you like this type of content, please hit like and consider subscribing to see more videos like this. This video is going to be jam-packed with information, so sit back and enjoy this video. What we're going to look at is the BrowserCat, which is a tool that we're going to be using today in conjunction with Playwright. So what is BrowserCat? So the BrowserCat is a web automation tool that provides a high-speed and high-scale headless browser fleet. So it allows you to scale and run your tests on their server. Let's go ahead and take a look at their pricing page. There's 3 different plans that they offer: the hobby, business, and enterprise. You can get started with hobby plan and just check them out and just play around with their service, where they give you 1,000 free credits per month, and you only have to pay for the extra credits as you go over this free credits per month. The difference between the different plans is for the free plan, you get 10 concurrent requests versus 1,000 requests for business and enterprise use. And for each 10,000 credits, you pay $10 per month, as you can see down here. When you first log into their website, you're presented with this dashboard where you can see your usage for this period. You can change the period on the top, and it tells you how many credits you've used so far, how much requests, and how long did your test took for this period. Let's go ahead and take a look at the API keys on the top left, where you can create different API keys for different clients that you're using here. It's quite simple. Just create a key and just name it, let's say for ActivePieces or whatever you're running your test from. You can just put a description here and what's the expiration. Typically, you'll expire it within a year, and after that, you have to generate a new key for that application. So let's go ahead and jump into ActivePieces. I've set up a new flow where I have a webhook trigger. The trigger here is going to change depending on your requirement for your testing. So if you're doing some sort of regression testing where you want to do it automatically and run on schedule, you can do a schedule-based type of trigger here, where your test is going to run every hour or every 30 minutes or every 24 hours, just depending on your use case here. I've set up webhook and 2 different tests here. One is for the Lambda test. I'm going to do another separate video on that one in the future, but let's focus on the third one here, which is running using BrowserCat. And I've already set up an API key here. As you can see, I'm feeding it as part of the input for the code, and I already have the base URL here and the parameters that I'm going to be feeding into the code. Let's go right ahead and look into the actual code itself. Here I added a dependency for Playwright itself. As of this recording, we have 1.40.1 is the latest version for Playwright. And let's switch back to the code itself. We're going to add in a couple of imports on the top of this page. We're going to be importing the Chromium itself, the browser that we're going to be using to run the test, and the expect, which is a function from Playwright /test. The next thing we're going to be doing is to set up a couple of things on the top, a couple of variables that we can reuse across all our tests. The first thing is the bcat URL, which is the BrowserCat WebSocket. This is the WebSocket URL that they provided for us. Let's go ahead and assign the variables on the top by introducing this function. It's called set variables. We're going to use this variable or function to set up the variables such as the API key and base URL, which we are passing in as part of the input parameter. So we're going to call that function. We're going to pass in the inputs, and it's going to provide us the base URL and the API key that we're passing in as part of the parameter, as part of the execution of this code. The next thing we're going to be doing is to actually get the browser context. This is going to be allowing us to connect to the BrowserCat service using the Chromium. So the way to do that and remotely connect to their service is to provide this WS endpoint, and we're going to be passing in the BrowserCat URL, which we've defined on the top. We're also going to pass in a extra piece of information to basically authenticate and make sure that we're the correct client by passing in the API key. We're going to be passing in the API key that we provided as part of the parameter. So that's how we create an instance of this browser. The next thing we'll be using is the context. We're going to create a new context here. Context for each test that you're going to be doing. You're going to be creating a new session for it. It's going to keep track of that specific session, and you can have multiple tests as part of that session. So we're going to return that object that contains the browser and the context, and we're going to be calling that from the top when we execute the code function, right? So we've destructured both the browser and the context when we call that function. The next thing we're going to be doing here is to actually run the test. So we're going to be taking in the context, and we're going to have 3 different tests that we're going to be doing here, and each of them we're going to pass in the context. So let's start off by introducing the first function that we're going to be doing, which is I'm going to be defining at the bottom here. So the verified the pieces page have the correct title. So we're going to pass in the context here, and from here you can see that I have 3 different parts of this test. The first part is to arrange, is to set the different expectations, the different URLs. This is the part of the test where I'm arranging all the different components that I need for my test. The next part is to act. This is where I do the navigation, going to the URL. As you can see here, I'm generating a new page by doing this context.newPage, and then I'm navigating to this URL, which I've defined above. I have the base URL, which is the ActivePieces.com, and then I'm doing a concatenation of /pieces right here, and I'm doing a go to that URL. So I'm going to go to that URL. That's what we're doing here. And the next part would be the actual assertion itself. We're wrapping it in a try catch, which we're then going to return a false to signify that this test failed. The next thing that we're going to be testing is the pieces page here as part of the ActivePieces.com. Every time you type in a search on the search for pieces input, we're going to be seeing a result at the bottom. So in this particular test, we're going to be testing whether we have the correct count when we type in Google, for instance. So that's what we're going to be testing on. We can verify whether we have this text available for us when we type that search, or we can also go ahead and verify how many pieces are available to us when we type in that Google as part of the search keyword. We can go ahead and inspect this by right-clicking it. The actual result is wrapped within this flex and then flex forward -wrap class, and each one is wrapped in this link a tag. So you're gonna find a unique piece of information that you can grab. In our case, we're gonna be using the basis-full, and that's what we're gonna be using to verify. Let's go ahead and define the new function for the test that we're going to be doing to verify the Google pieces count. So that's the second test that we're going to be doing here. Same thing as above, we're going to be passing in the context, where we're going to be doing there's 3 different parts to this test. The first thing is we're going to be doing the arrangement, and where we're going to be setting the pieces count, the expectation of what we're going to be doing. We're also defining the URL here, where we're passing in the base URL /pieces. And the next thing, we're going to be creating a new page as part of this act arrangement step that we're going to be doing here. We're going to be navigating to that URL. The next thing we're going to be doing is to grab the element, which is the search input for that page. We're going to be grabbing it via this $page.$, and we're going to be passing in the selector that we have. In our case, we're wrapping it in a square bracket where we can select an attribute for that element. In this case, we're going to be picking the element that has a placeholder that has the search for pieces on it. So that's how you search for a specific attribute. And we're going to go ahead and click on it to focus our input once we type in the Google, we're going to go ahead and look for the elements count. So the search result that we have. And remember that we're going to grab all the results by this class basis-full. And as part of that callback, we're going to be receiving the actual elements of it. And the elements.length is what we're going to be sending back when we call this function. So we're going to be returning this elements.length, and we're going to be awaiting it, and we're going to be returning it and passing in and assigning it to this elements count. Once we have all that, we're going to be doing our actual assertion for this particular test. And then we're going to go ahead and pass in the elements count. And then we're going to be calling this to be, where we're going to be setting in the actual expected pieces count that we want. If this assertion is actually true, it's going to return a true. Otherwise, it's going to return a false. So it's going to fall in this catch block if this one fails. Let's go ahead and examine the next set of tests that we're going to be doing, which is on the documentation page of the ActivePieces website. We're going to be just examining and verifying 3 keys of information here. First of all, it's going to be the H1 tag, which contains this emoji, "Welcome to ActivePieces." Make sure it's there, and we're going to do an verification on that. The next thing we're going to be doing is the actual title for the page. We're going to be verifying whether it's the correct title on the page. Lastly, we're going to be verifying that the dark mode button here is available for this page. So the first 2 that we're going to be verifying is quite simple, as there's only one H1 tag on every single page. So if you can see here, if I do an inspect, this H1 element or tag, and we can refer to that easily by doing an H1 locator. The next thing that we're going to be doing is the title itself, which we can find via the page class. So that's how we're going to be verifying to get the title, and we can do an assertion based on the text that we get. And for the toggle dark mode here, the way we're going to be doing that is through the locator. We're going to be passing in the actual role, which is the button itself, and we're going to be grabbing by the actual name of it, which is the screen reader class over here that's been defined for us. So we're going to be grabbing the name by the switch theme that has a button as the actual role. All right, let's go ahead and tackle the last set of tests that we have here. But if you're enjoying the video so far, please hit the like button in this video, as it means a lot. Support the channel. All right, we're going to go ahead and add the last function that we have, which matches the last test that we have right here. We're defining a synchronous function that accepts a context similar to what we have before. First is to arrange, which is to set the documentation URL, as you can see here. We're going to go ahead and add the expected page title that I've defined above, and also expected page H1 text. I've also defined it right here as well. And the next set of things that we're going to be doing in this as part of this function is we're going to be setting the act, which is we're going to be going ahead and creating a new page here. We're going to go ahead and navigate to the URL, which is the documentation page. And then we're going to go ahead and do an assertion. So as you can see here, there's 3 different types of assertion that we're going to be doing. First thing is we're going to be passing in the documentation page, and we're going to verifying that we're going to call this to have title. So we're going to pass in the expected page title here, which contains the emoji and welcome to ActivePieces here and above. And the next thing we're going to be doing is to pass in the docs page .locator, which we're going to be passing in the ID of header here. If you just want to grab the element itself, you can go ahead and type in H1 as well. It's going to work the same way. And then we're going to call in the contain text, and we're going to pass in the expected page H1 text that we've defined above. And lastly, we're going to be doing an expect on the actual switch theme toggle button for switching between dark theme and light theme. So we're going to be passing in the locator, and we can define it by the docs page .get by role. We're going to be using the get doing the button here. And the second parameter to that get by role is to define which one is it. So we can use the button by this name of switch theme, and that's how we grab the locator for that specific button. And from here, we can just call this to be visible method to verify that the actual element itself is available on the page. If everything is good to go, we're going to reach this return true. Otherwise, it's going to go to this catch block here where it's going to return a false for us. All right, before we go ahead and execute our test, I added two subset properties here, which is going to go through the test results, and I'm going to be defining the success count and the failure count. So this is going to be useful for us if we want to send an email later on to a recipient if the test failed for some reason. So I'm defining two extra variables here that we're going to be returning as part of this results. So what we're doing here is we're going to go through all the test results that we have on the top, and we're going to do a truthy check. So for each property that we have over here, if it's truthy, then we're going to go ahead and accumulate and add to the success count. Otherwise, we're gonna be adding to the failure count that we have below. All right, the last thing I want to cover here is this tool built by Playwright to generate tests rather quickly. And you can get here by going to the actual documentation for Playwright and going to the generating test link on the left-hand side. You're going to be presented with the page itself, and you're going to give you the command line for running CodeGen itself. You need to install Playwright on your local machine to be able to execute this command, and you can execute this command by using npx playwright CodeGen followed by the URL itself. Then you can start recording the test. All right, let's do a quick demo on how it works. So if you don't have Playwright installed in your local machine, you can go ahead and do an install Playwright -g for global. And the way to run CodeGen itself is by typing in Playwright CodeGen followed by the URL. But we can go ahead and skip that URL part, and it will just like run the actual environment for doing this code generation process. You have a Playwright inspector that's hanging around, and you're presented with this browser which is in incognito mode. It allows you to do a setup and record your test. So the few things that you can notice on the top here is you can do a locator, pick a locator on the page, assert visibility, and assert text, and assert the value. And you have this thing where you can kind of move it around. You can go ahead and type in the URL that you want to test for. For instance, I want to navigate in test ActivePieces website itself. As we navigate and put in the URL, we're given the code on the left or the right hand side, where it gives us the actual code for the test runner. In this case, we have it set by default to Node.js test runner, but we can go ahead and switch it for the different languages such as Java, Python, and C#. If you want to switch back to MS Test, for instance, it's going to give you a code for that. If you're using NUnit as your NUnit testing framework, we can go ahead and generate code for that as well. For this demonstration, we're going to go ahead and stick with the test runner for the Node.js. Whenever you hover around the different parts of this website, it will give you a highlight of what the element is, right? So if you go ahead and click on this pieces code to navigate to that URL and what type of action was performed on that element that we've just highlighted. So you can fill out, for instance, I want to type in Google over here. You went ahead and did a click by doing a locate on this get by placeholder, which is search for pieces. It went ahead and click on that and type it in. It did a field method. For instance, I want to check whether if I type in Google on the search, we can verify this we can verify the text, making sure that we get this text on the top here. It says right here, all of 9 available pieces. We can go ahead and click on the verify by, for instance, like a text, where we can just click on it first, and then we can go ahead and we can assert that this is the correct text. for that particular one, we're going to go ahead and click on the checkbox. We added an expect assertion here where it's passing in the actual body, and we're verifying that the body contains the text of all 9 pieces after we fill out and hit Google on it, right? So there's a few things that you can do here as well, such as the visibility of the elements. You want to get the role by heading, and you're grabbing this by name of explore pieces, and we're just validating, make sure this particular element is visible. So there's a few things that we can do. Now you can go ahead and copy this code and paste it in your actual test. All right, this wraps it up for this video. If you get some value out of this video, please consider subscribing to my channel to see more of this type of videos in the future. Please leave a comment if there's any tutorials that you'd like to see me do. But bye for now.